join me. Imagine what we could accomplish together.
A classic comic book superhero hit the big screen in 2002 with all the force of a ton of bricks shot out of a large cannon amusingly aimed at a wayward foil balloon.
He is extremely cool.
Spider-Man. It's apparent that some people, including me, can't go 5 minutes without referencing a theme tune to the 1960s Spider-Man cartoon. Does whatever a spider can, you say? So what, he hides underneath the pile of dirty clothes in the laundry and leaps out at you when you least expect it. Sounds about right, dirty spider bastards. Spider-Man had consistently been one of Marvel's most popular characters ever since he was originally created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko in 1962. He'd been popular enough to star in several comics and animated series, but live-action success eluded the character, like a process server trying to hand D.B. Cooper a subpoena.
Amazing Spider-Man!
My name's the Human Spider.
There had been a short-lived series in the late 70s, and of course there was the Japanese cult series. But basically, Spider-Man just had to sit by and watch while Batman, Superman, and more recently the X-Men had all had very successful runs on the big screen. Marvel Comics had been through a prolonged rough patch financially, where its ownership changed hands more often than the travelling pants. Marvel went into bankruptcy in the mid-90s, but a buyout by toy company Toy Biz brought the likes of Ike Perlmutter and Ari Arvid into the Marvel story. There had been attempts to do something with Spider-Man throughout the 80s and 90s, but like World Peace, just didn't take.
Don't start without me.
The rights to the character were tied up for a time with various companies, but by the end of the 1990s, Marvel finally seemed free to do with Spider-Man as they pleased. As part of Operation Dig Marvel Out from Under Shit Mountain, the company's new management licensed out its properties to various studios, often under terms that made it almost impossible for Marvel to ever recover those film rights.
What?
In the early 2000s, that wasn't really considered a problem, since sustained success with movies based on Marvel Comics was still an unattainable dream. The film rights to Iron Man at the time were worth less than a copy of the failed house husband magazine, Ironing Man.
I missed the part where that's my problem.
Sony paid $7 million for the rights to make Spider-Man movies, which turned out to be a good deal for Marvel. Yet in time, it was a really bad deal for Marvel. That is, of course, grossly oversimplifying what actually went on, leaving out a lot of relevant but not particularly funny legal details. So let's just say that they flipped a coin and then sued each other over who owned heads and who owned tails, swapped rights to this, that and the other, and the result was, well, this movie.
What are you doing up there?
Staying away from you.
Sony, who owned Columbia Studios, who of course made the 1977 Spider-Man series, got to work putting together a Spider-Man film, perhaps buoyed by the positive reception of Fox's first X-Men film in 2000. Various directors were considered, but the job was eventually offered to Sam Raimi. He had made his name in darker fare, starting with genre movies like the Evil Dead trilogy and Darkman, before working on smaller projects for studios. With Spider-Man, he proved that he could do more than just fancy staging and camera work, and gave us a film that sucked you into the world of a meek kid who just happens to have superpowers.
Who is Spider-Man? He's a criminal, that's who he is. A vigilante, a public menace.
This is Peter Parker, photographer, overachieving science student, dork.
Stop the blast!
He's bitten by a spider and wakes up the next day to find he has abs. He can now see without his glasses, he has super reflexes, stickier hands, and he's able to emit sticky white substances from his body. It comes off his wrists. Oh shit. Forget the innuendos, he can shoot webs, and that's a documented medical condition, so don't judge. Peter lives with his Aunt May and Uncle Ben, who's recently been laid off from the rice factory. Peter has been in love with his neighbour, Mary Jane Watson, since before he could shoot sticky webs from his body, and at school, he's treated like a meek freak by all but his friend Harry Osborn, who is the son of businessman Norman Osborn.
I'm something of a scientist myself.
Peter quickly finds that his powers could be useful if he had better mastery over the sticky web goo his body produces in such large quantities. He experiments with what he can and can't do. Uncle Ben and Aunt May are worried about Peter. They are concerned that he just spends too much time locked in his bedroom, unlike other teenagers. Uncle Ben tries to talk with Peter, but Peter's not in a chatty mood at this point.
And I know I'm not your father.
Then stop pretending to be.
Very quickly, in order to get some quick cash so he can buy a car that he thinks that will impress Mary Jane, usually just known as MJ, he enters a wrestling contest, where of course he prevails, but the promoter stiffs him. So Peter just lets him be robbed. Unfortunately, the thief carjacks Uncle Ben's car, leaving Uncle Ben for dead. Peter's really cut up about not listening to Ben. Meanwhile, Norman Osborn is under pressure at work. Some serum that his company Oscorp is working on is having problems, and in order to save his position within the company, Osborn tests the formula on himself, despite the potential side effects. Of course, scientists using themselves as a guinea pig is one of the oldest tropes in comics, but it is a neat and handy shortcut into turning somebody into a villain. Osborn's become schizophrenic, talking to an evil alter ego.
Bingo. Me. Your greatest creation.
His company had conveniently developed a flying platform with a green operator's suit, which does look a bit like a goblin. A green one.
He doesn't live on a little place I like to call Earth.
High school's over and everybody's gone to the city. Harry and Peter will be roommates, and Peter tries to find a job, while MJ's dreams of becoming an actress have hit a few snags. Of course, Peter, being too meek to make a move on MJ, does sulk when he discovers that Harry has swooped in and has been dating MJ for quite a while. So you have spidey senses, yet you can't hear your roommate with the love of your life in the next room. That's probably for the best. Okay, so that's the wrong superhero, but the right song. Osborn Sr.'s being kicked out of his company while the board sells his company to a competitor.
You know how much I sacrificed?
Norman takes this about as well as can be expected, breaking more glass, and then wipes out the board at a festival where Spider-Man breaks cover for the first time and saves MJ.
You know who I am.
I do.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Peter's job search takes him to the Daily Bugle, since the future is clearly in print media. This is where he comes face to face with one of the Spider-Man universe's most outlandish, non-villain characters, J. Jonah Jameson.
He doesn't want to be famous, and I'll make him infamous.
Oh, he's a shithead alright, but he's a really funny shithead, like Dickhead Dave, who hangs around my local watering hole. Dickhead Dave will piss his pants like clockwork after his 4th drink and will never give up his stool at the bar, which by this point is quite unnecessary since regulars already have an unofficial 5-stool exclusion zone around Dave's soggy chair. Jameson does throw the hungry kid a bone, where he will pay Peter Parker peanuts for pictures, but protests will prevent Peter Parker's pay date since he has so few pennies. He had to give permission to print or pass on the prospect of perpetual payment as a paparazzo. What?
I'll send you a nice box of Christmas meat. Best I can do. Get out of here.
Mary Jane finds herself falling for Spider-Man after a hot and heavy and very wet kiss after he saved her a second time. Goblin's also trying to track down Spider-Man, as he's the only one who could possibly stop him. Norman meets MJ, and he's not impressed. Apparently, he just prefers the characters in Bring It On Again. Norman also realizes that Peter is Spider-Man, which was convenient since it's so late in the film to be introducing new major characters. And then the two face off in a smaller than you'd expect face-off, where Spidey is backed up by the good people of New York.
You tried to kill Aunt May. You tried to kill Mary Jane.
Spider-Man is not taken in by Norman's attempts to talk his way out of trouble, but those spider senses see him prevail.
Oh.
Harry, of course, will blame Spider-Man, whoever he is, for causing his father's death, and then Peter just walks away from MJ just as she's finally come around to liking him for him. What a schmuck. Also, she's now realised that Spider-Man and Peter use the same flavour lip balm, cherry cola papaya.
Who am I? I'm Spider-Man.
Spider-Man is, and how can I put this nicely, just freaking amazing. It took a character that hadn't successfully been able to make the leap to live action and knocked it out of the park.
Up, and away, Web! Shazam!
It has human characters, it tells the origin story with a minimum of fuss, and just gets on with the film without ever getting past the fact that Peter Parker can't ever seem to get his shit together despite having all of these spider advantages.
That's slander.
It is not. I resent that. Slander is spoken. In print, it's libel.
Tobey Maguire wasn't an obvious choice as Peter Parker. You don't necessarily buy him as a dork, but you don't have to for long. The reality that Spider-Man doesn't make his life immediately better is a central part of the character. Tobey Maguire would be the definitive Spider-Man for a while, at least until those pesky Brits took over.
Hey, you have blue eyes. I didn't notice without your glasses.
Kirsten Dunst as MJ is solid. She's just out of Peter's league at the start of the film despite life throwing her some bum deals in this movie. A crappy home life and a lack of success.
Do what you need to with her, then broom her fast.
James Franco as Osborn Jr., was oddly not asked back for No Way Home, would take Harry from troubled rich kid to whiny rich boy, and then ultimately a villain over the course of the eventual trilogy. Rosemary Harris as Aunt May was probably the last time they'd actually tried to make the character look like Aunt May in the comics. Cliff Robertson as Ben is a character with little screen time relative to the impact he has on the story, but he does of course get to say one of Spider-Man's most iconic lines and not seem silly saying it.
With great power comes great responsibility.
J.K. Simmons would steal every scene he's in, which does lead me to wonder why there isn't a prequel spin-off showing how J. Jonah Jameson helped cover up Watergate.
You don't trust anybody, that's your problem.
I trust my barber.
And Willem Dafoe as Osborn, the Foe.
Power beyond your wildest dreams, and it's only the beginning.
There aren't many actors who could pull off a character talking to himself with as much style as Dafoe, even if he just has this thing about breaking glass. Pro tip, serve him drinks in a paper cup. There are also small roles for one of Raimi's oldest friends, Evil Dead star Bruce Campbell, who of course named Spider-Man, Raimi's brother Ted Raimi, Joe Manganiello as Flash, Octavia Spencer, and under the wig, Elizabeth Banks. There's also wrestling star Randy Savage, and if you blink, you'll miss Xena actress Lucy Lawless.
Guy with 8 hands. Sounds hot.
There's always been a bit of fan controversy over Peter's organic web shooters rather than the mechanical web shooters of the comics. Sam Raimi felt organic shooters were slightly more believable, and eventually organic produced webs would make its way to some of the comics. As we know, comic book readers are always ready to completely 100% embrace even the smallest, tiniest, most infinitesimal change from the source material. Don't we?
Go! Go! Go, Webb, go!
Sam Raimi's first-class directorial instincts here serve him well. Everything just works in this movie, from the music by Danny Elfman, again typecast with crafting superhero themes, to the costumes and effects.
No one says no to me!
It's not yet at the point where everything is created totally within the computer. It's close, but not quite yet. FX pioneer John Dykstra knew the film would require a lot of CG effects work, while at the same time Sam Raimi wanted as many practical effects as possible. There is of course a lot of CG work in a film, but the scale of the movie meant it never got to the point of ridiculousness. We are talking about a film where a guy bitten by a spider emits sticky white goo and is chased by a man who has long conversations with himself. The Green Goblin was originally to have a much more organic look to his face, but was changed during production to a mask. Before he was working on big Hollywood films, costume designer James Acheson started off at the BBC, where he designed some iconic looks for Doctor Who.
Is that what you want?
As it's the 2002 movie, it's still a world before everybody has a cell phone. Peter even uses, what do they call this thing? A pay phone. Good lord.
Norman?
So here's a film that pushes so many of the right buttons, mixing action, comedy, and romance. It's never less than fun and sets up a solid foundation for an even better sequel. Add a third one that was, but just how good was Spider-Man 2? If you enjoyed this review, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below, or check out some of our other videos.